Hi everyone, welcome to Exploring What's Next, your transition to JSTOR Digital Stewardship Services. This webinar is for institutions currently licensing Forum. We will be talking about what's next in your institution's transition to stewardship, the updated transition timeline and dual access period, and what you need to know to get started in stewardship. Let's start with some introductions. My name is Elizabeth Behrens and I'm a partner and user education lead at Ithaca. I'm joined today by several colleagues from across Ithaca. Roger Schoenfeld, the Managing Director of JSTOR Digital Stewardship Services. Jason Przybilski, Associate Director of Participant Success for Stewardship. Shima Hushiar, User Researcher for Stewardship. Ann Connolly, Senior Product Manager for Stewardship. And Remus Jackson, Partner and User Education Lead. A quick note first about our webinar survey. After you exit the webinar, as always, you will be taken to a brief 3-question survey, and we'd appreciate hearing your thoughts about this session. If you don't have time to take the survey immediately, it will also be sent to you by email in about an hour. Thank you for your feedback, which helps us shape future webinars, just like your feedback from the July transition webinar helped us decide what information to include in this one today. Also, we are recording this webinar, and within a few days, you'll receive an email from us with a link to the webinar recording, along with an FAQ document, if needed, from today's Q&A. First, a little bit about our goals. Our goals for this webinar today are all about helping you feel comfortable navigating your transition to stewardship. We'd like you to leave with the information you need to start to work effectively on the new platform. And we also want to ensure you know about the support, communication, and resources that are available to you. Here's today's agenda. First, Roger will be providing some context for JSTOR Digital Stewardship Services, and then Jason will give us an update on the dual access period and transition timeline. Shima will then speak about their user research work that has helped focus priorities for stewardship. Then I will take us into the live stewardship platform to show you how easily you can get started using it. And I will also talk a bit about educational resources that are available for you, including upcoming training. We should have about 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A where we will be joined by both Ann and Remus. And now I will pass the slides off to Roger.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you everyone for being here today. We're so excited to have a chance to tell you, catch you up on where we are and make sure that this transition is a positive one for you. I'm going to start in the next slide with a little bit of a background on our mission and our organization. As you know, JSTOR is a part of Ithaca, which is a not-for-profit organization. We have a mission to help expand access to knowledge and education around the world. And one of the things that links together a lot of different work across JSTOR and JSTOR stewardship is this mission to expand access to knowledge. When JSTOR was originally created, the idea was that it would miniaturize journal back files to save shelf space and help colleges and universities avoid having to expand the physical footprint of their library facilities. It was a kind of economic argument that JSTOR could save capital expenditures, and we had lots of impact in that way with libraries that moved materials off site or initiated shared print partnerships, or in some cases outright deaccessioned substantial amounts of journal back files. But the story is that as soon as those materials were digitized and available through a then modern web platform and through a trustworthy, trusted organization and through a fee structure that was broadly seen as fair and inclusive, we saw that the impact went so much beyond saving space, right? I mean, I think almost everyone today would agree that the primary impact of JSTOR has been to dramatically expand the discoverability and access of journal back files. Beyond the few hundred largely elite institutions that previously had access to them in print form, to now thousands of institutions and millions of users around the world who can benefit from access. And we want to help you, our stewardship and forum community, do the same thing with distinctive collections. That's really what we're here for. That's what we're about. That's what we see as the connection of this work into our mission. So in the next slide, I'm going to just sort of emphasize that the foundation for the work that we are talking about today has a deep history for our organization that started with ArtStore and Shared Shelf. Some of you in our community today, we are rich with visual collections as a result of that. As a result of that that starting point. When Shared Shelf became JSTOR Forum, we introduced a variety of new formats and brought to bear the power of the JSTOR platform, which in so many institutions is the most widely used platform among humanists and arts and social scientists scholars. And JSTOR stewardship, where we are today, is really building on and growing from this foundation, and it's one we're very proud of and deeply respectful of. In the next slide, I'll just share, as you've probably heard by now, JSTOR stewardship represents an ongoing reinvestment by Ithaca, by our organization, in library and archival distinctive collections. I can't emphasize that enough. We see the value and significance of the work that you and your colleagues are doing, and we've made an organizational decision to make a reinvestment, a real investment in supporting that work. Stewardship, as we envision it, it's designed for all the distinctive and digital collections across your campus or your organization. So archival materials, visual resources, audio, video, and quite a bit more. Really everything, all the digital collections that your library and archives and potentially other parts of your institution will collect and wish to preserve and make broadly available. And so we've built stewardship really intentionally so that you can use all of its tools seamlessly on an end-to-end basis. We're working really hard to make that connection work really smoothly. But you can also just select specific tools you want that fit best into your environment. So we're not trying to lock anyone into having to use every single bit of it. We're trying to preserve flexibility, and that's a really important principle for us. Just want to show you sort of how those tools fit together in this next slide. So there are broadly speaking, there's 4 sets of tools in JSTOR stewardship. And collectively, they're designed to provide what we believe is peerless discovery and impact within the context of responsible workflows and the strongest possible commitment to preservation. So looking at this slide, let's start on the lower left, and I'll just do a quick overview of those 4 tools. So on the lower left, you see we represent digital asset management, right, which is obviously a foundational part of the platform, and the kind of user experience for most of the practitioners, most of the librarians and archivists who are using this platform. It includes, we think, really terrific flexible cataloging and streamlined workflows. We've been making a variety of improvements to that experience that we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about. But there's a lot more to JSTOR stewardship than that. So continuing clockwise from the lower left, yeah, as you know, the interface for stewardship, the public interface for stewardship, is JSTOR, and there's an opportunity seamlessly to provide discovery and impact inside of the existing workflows of your users who are most likely to be looking for your digital collections, and millions of other users who are looking for digital collections. And so that's a very significant part, we believe, of what we have to offer here. Continuing clockwise, we're including built-in preservation for Portico. This is something new that wasn't a part of Forum directly, something that's really important, we believe, for every institution to have ready, effective access to the best gold standard preservation that's out there. And so we're building in preservation with the click of a button so that you can be assured and can assure your stakeholders and constituents that you are effectively preserving their digital collections. For some of you, that may be a new thing. For others, it may just be more seamless, but we hope that that's something that you see as valuable. And then finally, now this is something that is part of stewardship, but will not be something that you'll receive automatically unless you choose to move into Tier 3 at some point in the future. But as you may know, we've built a collections processing tool that we call JSTOR SeqLite, which provides it generates item level metadata. It generates text recognition and transcripts, both for handwriting and for TypeScript material. It generates collection level description and intelligence. There's a lot more to come. We're very much in the midst of continuing to build and expand JSTOR SQLite. And it's something that we're very excited about in our ability to keep practitioners and professionals in control and at the heart of this work, but to provide the opportunity to leverage new technologies in a form of a tool that practitioners can use to ensure that not only collections can get processed more effectively, but also that they result in better discovery and improved impact. So all of this collectively are services that we're investing in right now, and we're very, very excited about the offering that they comprise. Now, on to the next slide, my last slide here. As I mentioned earlier, we're making a major investment in our services to libraries and archives under JSTOR stewardship. This includes substantial upgrades to the platform and the infrastructure that had previously run JSTOR Forum. I mean, we're not going to get into all of the ins and the outs of it, but at a basic level, the JSTOR stewardship platform runs on the most modern infrastructure. It uses the same coding principles and engineering standards that we use for JSTOR itself. It provides scaling benefits, and it's going to accelerate our development velocity. So we're going to be able to build more features and get them to you more quickly. And we have a huge agenda for what we want to add to this platform and this set of services in a way that's consistent, we believe, with our mission and our goals for this platform, and we think are going to add tremendous value to your work as well. But our goal today, our goal now, is to provide a seamless transition so that as we move into this more modern infrastructure and add new services, that you and our entire community can begin to benefit from this infrastructure seamlessly. And we are really committed to making sure that it's one that's a good process for our forum community. So with that, I will invite Jason to join us and turn things over to him.
Thank you so much, Roger. It's great to see everybody here. For those of you I haven't met before, my name is Jason Brzebilski, and I'm the Associate Director for Participant Success at JSTOR Digital Stewardship Services. I'm going to talk with you a few minutes about the transition from JSTOR Forum to Tier 2 of JSTOR Digital Stewardship Services and the dual access period that we're in right now. If we can go to the next slide. So as of last week, November 10th, all existing forum participants were set up with dual access to both JSTOR Forum and the new JSTOR Stewardship Services platform. No action was required by you to enable access to stewardship, so all of the users at your institutions automatically have access to both platforms using their same login credentials. Just a reminder that any work you do in the stewardship platform will be reflected in Forum and vice versa. So there's no need to duplicate efforts. And ultimately, you can begin using stewardship as your primary platform whenever you're ready to do so. This dual access period will last through at least January 16th of 2026 and possibly a little bit longer. We don't want to set the sunset date for Forum until you've had a chance to spend some time on the new stewardship platform, get accustomed to it, and provide some feedback. That being said, we will provide ample notice before we do determine that Forum sunset date. That being said, if you only take one thing from what I'm sharing here today, I hope it's this. Please take this time, take this dual access period to use the stewardship platform, to test it out, to use your kind of standard workflows and processes that you would normally do in Forum, try those out in stewardship, and let us know what's working, what's not working, what could be working better. We've done a significant amount of testing of the new stewardship platform, including with a cohort of Forum participants. So thank you to those of you who have participated in that. And my colleague Shima is going to talk a little bit about that user testing in a moment. But that being said, we know there are things we might not find until everyone is on the new platform and using it. So we fully anticipate that there may be bugs or aspects of stewardship that don't work quite right away. And we need to learn what those things are from you. So please get in there, test out the stewardship platform, and let us know what you find. Once you do start using the new stewardship platform, you'll notice a couple new features from Forum. One of those is that in the statistics tab in stewardship, which Elizabeth will show during the demo, you'll see that we're tracking or it displays the number of hours of audio and video content that you have uploaded in any given year. As Tier 2 participants, you'll have an allowance of 250 hours of audio and video per year. This is an annual allowance that resets every year according to your billing cycle. This allowance is distinct from your total storage because it tracks the actual uploading and processing of audio video materials. So your total storage is still 5 terabytes as it has been for the past few years, but this new audio video allowance is essentially counting what you're uploading. So even if content is deleted after the upload, it still counts towards that processing allowance. However, all of that being said, even though you'll see the audio video allowance in the statistics tab on stewardship right away, we're not going to begin officially tracking that allowance until January of 2026. So you'll see this, but you can essentially disregard it for the time being, and we'll have more details about that allowance as we get closer to January. The other significant change you'll notice, and which Roger talked about a little bit, is that you now have the ability to send your content directly from the stewardship platform to Portico for long-term managed preservation. When you send content to Portico for preservation, Portico will take it from there to manage the kind of ongoing preservation activities. This includes things like running checksums and fixity checks, monitoring for file obsolescence over time, and storing data in multiple geographically distributed locations. This preservation is managed at the project level, so you can pick and choose which projects you want to send to Portico for preservation. And Elizabeth, again, will demonstrate this shortly. Tier 2 automatically includes 1 terabyte of preservation, so you can begin preserving the content you feel needs it most. And of course, additional preservation can be added if and when you need that. You can begin preserving content immediately during this dual access period right now. But please do note that because of the upfront work that goes into preserving content, that work I was talking about that Portico does, it is not a seamless process to remove content from Portico. It is not like deleting content from the digital asset management system. So because of that, there are some limitations on the ability to unpreserve content once it's been sent to Portico. So please, by all means, start exploring this feature, but also do so mindfully. Once you've sent content to Portico for preservation, you'll be able to use the separate Portico audit site, for which you also received credentials last week, to check on the status of your preserved materials and get various kinds of reporting on your preserved content. Finally, before I hand things over to Shima, I'd like to provide just a brief update on fees going forward. So as we've shared previously, your forum fees will remain unchanged through the end of 2026. This means you won't see any changes in your fees until your 2027 forum invoice, whenever that happens to be. We've been developing the future fee plans with your input. We've had a number of conversations with forum participants, and we've learned a lot from those. So thank you to those of you who have talked with us and engaged in these conversations with us. And based on what we've learned from those conversations, we anticipate being able to share the ongoing fee plans before the end of this year. So we'll have more to come on that shortly. All right. With that, I think that ends my piece of today's presentation. So thank you all very much. And I'd like to hand it over to my wonderful colleague, Shima, to talk about the user research work they've been leading.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Hello, everyone. My name is Shima. I'm the user researcher for JSTOR Stewardship. And I'm just going to walk through, just give you a sneak peek of some of our research work and some of our processes. So, one thing that we really value deeply here at Ithaca is evidence, and using evidence to determine what are we going to build and how are we going to build it in the way that, best meets your needs, as our participants. So I'm going to kind of show you, one of the most important features that you've all used many times is the bulk editing feature. in Forum and in stewardship. So some of you may remember this early version that we were experimenting with of bulk editing. And one reason that we wanted to kind of update this feature originally was there was some slow loading times that we were trying to improve through a design change. And another issue is that, from previous research, we kind of saw how some people, for example, were using Control F to find a field amongst, dozens of metadata fields that they might have, because some participants only focus on bulk editing one or two fields at a time that apply, to that whole project or a subselection of that project. And then, they go into the single item edit page to, further refine their metadata per item. So, this kind of gave us this idea for this feature where you can select the fields that you actually want to hone in on. So when you open the bulk edit experience, you can just, say you want to bulk edit the creator field for all of your items. You can just focus on that and not sort of, accidentally touch other fields that, you don't want to edit. And so in an earlier iteration, we tried to kind of pare down the design to kind of make it more efficient and keep our users in their workflow. But one thing that we learned actually through user testing was that this is just like one way that people bulk edit. And it kind of led us to this understanding of a different approach that we kind of came to call bulk cataloging, which is, for some of our users, it's very important for them to kind of have the entire metadata fields exposed. Because we learned that that's actually one way that they kind of apply changes like across the board to like many fields at once, and it's more efficient for them. But also seeing other fields, even if you're not editing them, sometimes gives you a clue if you have like mistakenly, there's an error in the metadata, or like maybe you have student workers who maybe made a mistake. Even if you're not editing a field, seeing it exposed actually reveals maybe some of the mistakes, and it helps you kind of catch some of those errors. So, getting that feedback and kind of understanding the workflows was very helpful for us to kind of determine, okay, what is important here. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see on the left, actually, a little sneak peek into our process. We really kind of went back to the drawing board and kind of thought about, okay, what's important here? What are people trying to accomplish? What are the different, types of approaches to bulk editing and bulk cataloging? So you'll see some of the early sketches where we were kind of going back to like what was really important. So that kind of led us to kind of another iteration that you'll see here on the right, where we tried to preserve some of the things that were valuable from Forum, while also including some of the new features. So, you start off by having all the metadata fields exposed, but you still have the option of, selecting an individual field or searching for an individual field if you only want to focus on bulk editing that field. The other thing that we also learned, from the earlier iteration was, there were no thumbnails. And, that caused a lot of anxiety for some of our participants who were testing that earlier iteration. And the fact that it was sort of, restricted to 1/3 of the screen. And, again, it kind of taught us about like, what is the importance of this? Like, why does this matter for some of our users? Having the thumbnails be exposed also is another way to ensure that you have selected the right items to bulk edit. So, you didn't accidentally select one that, snuck its way in there and you actually didn't intend to edit it. But also we made the thumbnails a little bit bigger, which I know for some of the, arts and visual collections is actually helpful to have the larger thumbnails to be able to see them more clearly. So, it was, again, a combination of understanding what's important to preserve from the previous experience, but also making sure that, we are kind of updating the experience to meet some of those needs. And this is sort of kind of the approach that we have taken to some of the other aspects of stewardship. So if you go to the next slide, I want to quickly also talk about the metadata records table. So again, this is something that came out in one of the earlier testing sessions, noticing that it was so common to filter and sort the metadata columns at the column header. And again, this is a functionality that we really try to prioritize and bring over from Forum, especially because most people have this mental model of working with Excel, with Google Sheets, and that kind of translates into how they are interacting with this metadata records table like a spreadsheet. And also being able to drag and drop your columns to rearrange them or to expand them by dragging and dropping. So again, kind of understanding what makes for an efficient workflow for our participants and why that's important to preserve really helped us prioritize these features in stewardship. And if you go to the next slide, so one thing that we did sort of, offer, in this regard was actually creating this filter button and this filter panel. So while you still have the ability to sort and filter at the column header, you can also do it in this way. And one of the original drivers of having this filter panel was actually making our product more accessible. So this allows people who use screen readers and keyboard users to more easily navigate the site. So originally it was really about accessibility. But actually what's interesting is that, again, through this user testing sessions that we ran is that one thing that I observed is that even though people are setting their filters at the column headers, once they have this, they are actually clearing the filters using this panel. And this is much more efficient because this way you can clear all the filters, with one click of a button. Instead of having to scroll and find all of the columns that you have filtered in the past. So again, these are some of the things that we're kind of learning about what is more intuitive for users, for you all, how you're approaching this, what's the reasoning behind some of the workflows, what are some of the restrictions and limitations when you are going through your normal workflows. And so that really helps us kind of understand, the why behind, some of the ways that everybody is working. And so that kind of leads me to my next slide, which is that we are not done. We are continuing to improve the product. So, we want to offer new features and research is an ongoing endeavor here. So I really implore you to be part of our research panel if you would like to participate. There's a QR code. It takes you to a Google form. You can fill out your information there. I'll also ask Remus or Elizabeth to post the link as well in the chat so you can access it that way. Joining doesn't obligate you to participate. It's just you're giving us sort of your consent and your interest to participate. You're not obligated to do so. But I just wanted to kind of highlight how important it is to participate in these sessions and make sure your voice is heard and really help us kind of understand, your world so we can make a better product for you. And with that, I'll pass it on to Elizabeth.
Okay, thanks, Shima. Now I'm going to spend some time walking through some updates on the stewardship platform with you. If you attended our webinar back in July, some of this will look familiar to you, but there have been some updates since even then. As I mentioned in that webinar, the workflows that you are already using in Forum will be very much the same in stewardship. The most visible changes in stewardship have to do with navigation and some improved functionality like Shima was just speaking about with bulk editing. Many of the changes we have implemented are making the platform more accessible while also improving overall performance. For our live demo, I'll be showing you around the platform in case you haven't had time to take a look yet to see your projects in the new environment. We will also take a closer look at new and improved features, including audio and video, bulk editing, and preservation. So we're going to leave these slides now and go to the live stewardship site. I'm also going to turn off my camera so you can see more of my screen. Okay. So here I am logged into the stewardship site, and if you haven't seen it yet, this is the new homepage of stewardship. You can log into stewardship.jstor.org and use your existing forum username and password. Once you're logged in, you'll see your forum projects here as they are now stewardship projects. There's no migration work that you need to do to move them to stewardship. Everything is already here and ready to go. So here in stewardship, you can see your most recently used projects across the bottom of your screen for quick access. Above that is this Get Started area where you can quickly create a new project, manage your existing projects, and import metadata using the guided collection builder tool. Also new here on the left is a sidebar menu, which is persistent throughout stewardship, so you can quickly get to any tools that you need. The sidebar can also be collapsed and expanded if you need more space on your screen. This is where you will find all of the tools that are currently found in the Forum top navigation bar that you are probably familiar with. So I'll go through these menu options a bit quickly now to remind you where to find everything. The projects heading takes you to an option to see all of your stewardship projects, so not just your most recently accessed projects. A nice new feature now is you can sort all of your projects using the drop-down menu to reorder them alphabetically or by last accessed, which is the default setting. The admin subheading contains administrative functions like user management. Manage users shows you the list of all users at your institution, and this is where you can go to add new institutional users, add them to projects, and edit their permissions. Customize landing page is where you customize your institution's JSTOR page that everyone sees when they look at your published institutional collections. You can include your institutional branding here, including your logo and banner image, customize the color scheme, and write a general institutional level description. Manage permissions takes you to a list of all projects at your institution with information about your own level of access to these projects, which can be edited if you are an institutional admin. And then finally, under admin is statistics, which Jason mentioned earlier. This page gives you information about your storage, audio, video, and preservation allowances. And here you can even see how many minutes you have used of your 250-hour audio and video allowance with a breakdown of audio and video usage right here under details. Below that is information about how much of your 1 terabyte of preservation allowance you have used. And then at the very bottom, there's also a link to collections usage data, which shows you usage information about your published items, which you may already know as the collections usage dashboard. There you should see some interesting information about where the content you publish to JSTOR is being used. You probably have already logged into this site. I don't have anything interesting to show you here because I'm using a demo account, but you'll see information about your own collections. So back in stewardship, the next section is cataloging tools. Build collections opens up the collection builder tool, which helps you build collections starting with an existing spreadsheet of metadata. Manage lists lets you create, access, and manage your controlled lists. And the last option here is create name. This takes you directly to the name form if you're familiar with this already. It's where you can add a new name for your users to access while cataloging. And alternatively, you can continue to create names from within the cataloging interface, just like in Forum. Let's go back to stewardship. The support link at the bottom, of course, takes you to the stewardship support site with many different helpful articles. And you can also always get to the support site by clicking the question mark at the top of the page on every stewardship screen. Okay, next we will review some updates to viewing records and cataloging. I'm going to go back to the projects view by clicking View Projects in the sidebar. And I'll collapse that sidebar to give myself some more room. So when I open a project, I'm going to open up this first one. I see some features that look different from how they looked in Forum. So here at the top of the page are tabs for seeing the project's metadata records. And there's a new tab here to access the activity monitor. Getting to the activity monitor in Forum is a button at the bottom of the page, and now it's right at the top of the screen. This is where you can see information about your recent publishing, propagation, and uploading activity for the project. Back to the metadata tab. There are a couple of ways that you can customize your view here. If you'd like to see your images larger from within the project view, there are buttons now at the top of the screen to toggle between gallery view and table view. So this takes you to gallery view where you can see thumbnails. The thumbnails in the gallery view are now much larger than they were in Forum's version of gallery view, which is nice to see much larger images. And if I switch back to project view, to the table view, I can show you how easily you can reorder the columns of metadata fields by dragging and dropping them. So for instance, if I want a title to be first after thumbnail, I could just drag it right there. And of course, you can set up your project workspace in whatever way makes sense for you. And you can even resize the columns if needed, if you don't want the field names or the metadata to be truncated. So I can resize my title field by dragging it wider, or you can double click next to the field name to automatically resize it. Another way to reorder your fields is by selecting the Show Hide button to see a list of all of your fields. And then you can reorder them from this view if you prefer by dragging and dropping them. If you'd like to hide any of your fields, you can do so by unchecking the box in the Show column, and it will be removed from this project table view. You can always restore your columns to the default order if needed by clicking that button at the top of the Show Hide window. And I'll close this window for now. So to perform any actions on records, you can find these actions using the 3-dot overflow menu above your records. This is where you can publish, suppress, or delete items after selecting them. And you can also download their metadata or media files from any records you select from this menu. Resize cells gives you a quick way to resize your project columns without having to manually drag or click on each one. So for instance, I'll resize all of my columns to medium, and I can select all of my fields or any of my fields if I wanted to do that, just to give all my data a little bit more room. And also within that menu is the option of adding selected records to a set. And I'll just talk about sets a little bit. There is now an expandable sets panel to the left of your records where you can view and edit your existing sets or create new sets. If you haven't worked with sets before, a set is a static manual grouping of items that you can create to suit your own needs. I have one set out here already called museums. And if I'd like to add an image to that set, I would just select one of my images and go up to that menu and add it to the set. This is not a new feature in stewardship, but it's the workflow is just slightly different from how it used to be. Okay, so going back to all of my records, filters are a little bit different from sets because you can search on any of your project's fields and then save that search as a dynamic filter, which means it will update as new content is added to your project that meets your filters criteria. So Shima spoke a little bit about the filter updates for stewardship, and I can show you what they look like in action. So if you use filters in your workflow, there's now the filter button above your records, and as well as a filter icon above each one of your columns for your fields. So you can use either way of filtering for content within your project, either by clicking on the filter in your column header or using that filter button at the top of the screen. So when you select the filter button, you open up the filters menu to narrow down your records by any of your project's fields, including administrative fields, of course, like filtering records updated by a particular user. Once you save any filters, they will appear at the top under saved filters. And I have just one filter saved here. And I don't have a lot of records in this project, but I can quickly demonstrate if I wanted to filter where Chicago is in the title. I can just type in Chicago and click Apply Filters. And it'll bring back the records that meet the criteria. If I want to narrow it down further, of course, I can search in subject. I'll search for music and apply that filter. And just like Shima pointed out to you a moment ago, you can see the criteria that you filtered for at the top of the screen, and you can remove any part of that if you need to. If I wanted to save my filter, I could click Save as New Filter and then enter a name and description, and then choose how widely I'd like to share it with others who have access to this project. Okay, next we'll look at an item record. So I'm going to clear my filters and go back to all of my records. I will open up this record of an 1890s publication, The Yellow Book. So when viewing an item, first you'll see some tabs beneath the file name. This project has two cataloging forms. They're called All Fields and Minimal, and I can click on their names to see the fields in those forms. Next is a tab for related objects. which you will see only if you're looking at a compound object like this one is. And of course, you know, that's a record which contains more than one media file. So in this instance, this record contains different pages of the same publication. And to see those related objects, I can either click on that tab to see the files, or I can go back to the regular view in the image viewer and advance between the images using the arrows on the image viewer. If you're looking at a record and need to adjust the size of the media window or your metadata fields, you can grab and drag the divider between them to resize the view. So this might help you see more of your image while zooming in and out, which might help you with cataloging. So I'm going to close this record. And let's take a look now at a record with an audio or video file. And I have one in this project down here. I have an audio file of a recording of a work by Virginia Woolf. So as you already know and Jason spoke about, audio and video capability is now available for stewardship participants without any additional fees. On audio and video files, you will see a transcript tab like this one. And this is where you can see the transcript that is automatically generated for audio and video files you upload. I'm going to quickly refresh to try to get that transcript to appear. And there it is. There may be cases where you'd like to make changes to this automatically generated transcript. And to do this, I would just click download transcript. That will download a VTT file. I can then make changes to the file and then upload the new version using the edit transcript button. When the record is published to JSTOR, the timestamps that are found within the transcript will be links that users can jump to different sections of the recording with. You can also add or update a thumbnail image to any of your audio or video records just by using the edit thumbnail button beneath the viewer. All right, I'll close this record. And now we'll take a look at bulk editing. This, of course, was available in Forum, but as Shima demonstrated, the functionality has really improved for stewardship. And I wasn't actually able to show this to you during our last webinar because this feature was under active development at that time. Bulk editing lets you catalog multiple items at once, so you can apply common metadata to several records in a single step. I will just select a few records in my project that I could bulk edit. I think these are all images of Union Station in Chicago. And I'll click the edit button above the records. This opens up the bulk edit screen. And I'll try refreshing in a moment if this doesn't work immediately. This is the sort of situation we'd love to hear feedback about if you're using stewardship and you're seeing a spinning wheel ever. That would be helpful for us to know and look on the back end to see what's going on. There we go. Sometimes refreshing is all it takes. So there are my records, and here is my bulk edit screen. There at first, you can see the different cataloging forms I have are available at the top of the screen. If I want to do some bulk cataloging of multiple fields at once, I can choose between whatever cataloging screens I have set up within this project. Also, I can use the select fields dropdown. If I just want to select specific fields for cataloging, I can do that right here rather than seeing all of them at once from my cataloging forms. Another nice feature here is the thumbnails are larger in bulk editing than they appeared in Forum. So this makes cataloging a little bit easier when you can see them better. Existing metadata for selected items will be displayed within the selected fields. But fields that contain multiple different values will say multi-value. Like for example, under title here, you see multi-value. You can use the checkboxes in the items to select individual records if you just wanted to enter cataloging to one or two of them at a time. And if you need to clear any values, you can click the X that appears next to any records or fields that have values in them. So enter your new cataloging data as needed within the bulk editing screen, and then you would just click Save. Okay. So preservation is also now available for all participants, as Jason spoke about earlier. To preserve your project with Portico, all you have to do is go to Project Settings, and then go to the Preservation tab, and then click Start Preservation when you're ready. This will initiate sending your project information to Portico, and once you set a project to be preserved, Portico will check your project on a monthly basis for updates, so these changes can be reflected in the preserved data. We do have a lot more information about preservation on the stewardship support site if you'd like to see more details, and there's a link to that right here. So let's go back to the slides now to talk a bit about educational resources. So here are some of the resources that are available for you already. On the support site is a transition guide called A Guide to JSTOR Digital Stewardship Services for Forum Participants. I did mention this in the July webinar, and it is the place where you can find the most current information about your transition to stewardship. And we are continuously updating it when we have any new details or developments to announce. Remus is going to put a link to this in the chat for you right now, but you can also find it just by going to the support site. The support site has been completely updated with articles about stewardship. The prior forum support articles are still available there as PDFs if you do need to reference them. And if you prefer to learn by watching training videos, just as a reminder, we have created updated versions of all of the forum video tutorials for the same workflows and stewardship. And these are available on YouTube as well as on the support site embedded within articles. We will continue to add to these over time, and if you'd like to take a look at them now, Remus will go ahead and put the link to the playlist in the chat now. And once today's webinar recording is available, we will also add it to that playlist. Just as a note, I would love to hear what other workflows or functionality in stewardship it would be helpful for you to see in a video tutorial, so please let me know. You can email us at stewardshipsupport@jstor.org, or even mention it in your survey response at the end of the webinar. Starting in January, we will be offering ongoing monthly training webinars that will cover all aspects of using stewardship. And this will be a rotating series of several different webinars to cover different workflows and functionality. The first one will likely be held in late January and will cover administrator functionality. And we will share the details and the registration info for that as soon as it's available. And also one final thing, as forum users, you may already be familiar with the participant discussion list, which is currently called JF Discuss. We use this list as a means of reaching out to our participants with announcements, monthly tips, and more. The list is now focusing exclusively on stewardship rather than forum. And if you aren't already a member of the list and would like to join, Remus is putting info about how to join in the chat right now. And it's a pretty quiet list, so don't worry about being overwhelmed with emails from it. We just have a couple of posts per month, but it's a good way to stay on top of stewardship news. Okay, we spoke earlier about our goals for today, and before we move on to the Q&A, I wanted to return to this slide and also talk about next steps. We'd like you to log into stewardship and try out your existing projects and workflows and start exploring the platform to get familiar with it. We are especially interested in hearing your feedback about stewardship, any issues you uncover, and what is or isn't working for you. Please let us know what your thoughts are after you've taken some time on the platform, and the best way to reach us is by emailing stewardshipsupport@jstor.org. So we will all come back on camera now and take a look at what questions have come in. And if you like, please feel free to use the questions box now in your go-to panel. And Remus has been keeping track of questions that have been coming in and will take us through them.
Yes, hi, thank you. We've got a couple of questions to start. I'm sure we'll get more in a second, but one question that I think would be great, I think this is probably a little bit of a Roger question, but could be for anyone, is what does tier 2 actually mean? So we have talked about, you know, tier 2, tier 3, but what does that actually mean in the context of stewardship?
Yeah, I'll get that started, and if anyone else has more to add, that'll be great. It's a terrific question. We are in the transition to stewardship. We are offering the service in 3 different tiers of service. So we're calling them tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 only lets you share materials to JSTOR, so there's no ability to do preservation or use the digital asset management features. Tier 2 is the tier that we described, which does include those features and some others. And then Tier 3 also adds in JSTOR SQLite, which is the AI-assisted collections processing tool. So it's really just a matter of situating it relative to those offerings. I think that would answer the question, but if others want to add anything else, or Remus, if you'd like to reframe it, then please feel free to do that.
No, I think that's a fairly solid answer. We've had a couple of questions. If the spreadsheet bulk upload workflow will remain the same in stewardship, or if it'll change. I can actually answer this one unless Anne or anyone wants to jump in, but it is essentially the same process. You can still use Excel for your bulk cataloging, and it is still the you can select the records and download them out of the metadata record table, or generate the template and then edit and re-upload from the add button that you might have seen in the demo. Alrighty, let's see. We had a question by kind of building off the Tier 2 question. By digital asset management capabilities, do you mean the cataloging feature? So maybe we could talk more about how we are envisioning the DAM.
I think the short answer is yes, that's at the core of it. But Andy or others, would you like to add anything else to that?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I think it's largely the cataloging features, but I think we're also, one of the things that we're looking at is sort of expanding outside of the traditional DAM capabilities by really including those preservation pieces and a few other pieces. So it's almost like a DAM plus that we're aiming for here, because we feel like what we'd really like to do, and what it sounds like the need is across the community, is to be able to address sort of more pieces of that stewardship spectrum of stewardship activities, right? And so I mean, I guess, I don't know, and anybody else feel free to jump in here, but I would kind of characterize it almost as like a DAM plus in a lot of ways.
I think that's right, and I think the features that, at least when I spoke and offered that clockwise overview of the 4 different sets of tools, the features there that I was referring to as digital asset management, they do include cataloging tools, but it also includes the ability to actually manage digital assets, whether or not they are published and shared to JSTOR or preserved with Portico. So there's an array of features that go beyond just cataloging. And to Anne's point, we're really trying to think about that in a very ambitious and next generation kind of way.
Great. Let's see. We have several questions about preservation that I would kind of group together as just more information about the preservation process. How do we are we able to upload things directly to Portico? Is there things to keep in mind in terms of preservation? So just to sort of elaborate there, the way that you preserve functionality is, as Elizabeth showed you, that button that exists in the project settings. Preservation is on a by project basis, right? So you are selecting which specific projects you would like to preserve. There is not a way to, the audit site is to allow you to view that content. Portico is not really an access website. If you wanted to make that content publicly available, we would want you to publish that to JSTOR or to an OAI, however you want to do that. But Portico is really meant for long-term preservation, not access. So that audit access is really just so you can view and see, the status of those preserved items. We did have a question about unpreservation and sort of because we mentioned that it is sort of a very difficult process. So maybe we could elaborate a little bit more about why it's not easy to just allow people to unpreserve whenever they want.
I can speak to that a little bit. Others, please feel free to jump in. Essentially the difference between uploading content to the digital asset management system and removing it is, that's more like short-term storage backup, like putting something on a Dropbox or other file system or something like that, versus sending something to Portico for preservation, where upon that ingest, Portico is taking on a significant amount of work to just ingest the files and then store them in the kind of long-term managed preservation kind of way. So they are doing the work to run fixity checks, run checksums, create metadata, create preservation level metadata that is tracked and changed over time. And then, like I said, also send that content, in addition to being stored in the cloud, also being sent to multiple geographically dispersed servers, so that if something happens in one part of the world, it's still, that content is still preserved elsewhere, or if a file becomes corrupted on one server, it can be backed up or restored from another server. So Portico is doing all of that work on a constant basis. And so to quote unquote unpreserved content or remove it from Portico involves essentially unwinding some amount of that work. And because Portico is intended as a long-term kind of dark preservation solution, it is intentionally not easy to get to unpreserved content, because that's not what Portico is built to do. And so, of course, we know there will be times when content does need to be unpreserved, and we can support that. But it is there's more friction in that process than, you know, simply deleting a file from a digital asset management system or from a folder on a server somewhere. So that's why it's a little bit more complicated, and there are some limitations around, you know, how often content can be quote unquote unpreserved.
Great. And just to very quickly, someone asked what happens when you make changes to records that have already been sent to Portico. Once you initiate that preservation, the Portico team automatically fetches any updates once a month. So it's versioned. It won't overwrite what was already preserved. It'll be any changes to the metadata or media files will be added as like the new version of that file over time. We also got a question, could you please elaborate on any new AI tools, which I think would be a fun one to talk about. I'm happy to start it off, and you know, if someone wants to jump in. But in tier 2, there are no AI tools. The AI collections processing tool that Roger referenced earlier, JSTOR SQLite, is available to tier 3 participants. So that is sort of the current sort of AI tool that I believe is being referenced. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that or anything. And then I think just to sort of end us off, we had a couple of questions about existing functionality. So asking about being able to make custom cataloging forms, if Omeka targets will still exist. And I wonder if maybe what we could talk about is just like what to expect if you have, you know, once you sign into stewardship, like what is, we know the projects will still be there, but are all the project settings going to be exactly the same? Like what will people actually see with their existing content?
I can jump in there. So your projects will be there just like in Forum. Really, it's everything is ready to go in the same exact way it is in Forum, or it was in Forum. The question about cataloging forms, that functionality still exists and works just the same. So you can go into stewardship and edit your project settings just like you can in Forum. So there's nothing to worry about learning new workflows or figuring out how things work differently in stewardship. It's really a nice seamless transition of accessing your content just on the new platform and seeing familiar tools and functionality with some very improved functionality as well.
Great. Yes. Excellent. All right.
I think we're about time. I'm not sure if we have time for any more, but we're at 1:59.
Yes. If there is anything that we didn't get to, we are going to have an FAQ that we share out along with that recording that is Elizabeth mentioned at the beginning. So we will share that with you all in a couple of days.
All right, just wanted to thank everyone for attending and for participating today. Please do remember to complete the survey when you close the webinar if you can, because that's very helpful for us. You'll also get another email from us within a week containing a link to the recording. Thanks so much.